over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Lots of great daily NBA content from our very talented cast of writers. Parker Michaels' daily NHL picks, situational betting tips for me in the NBA and the NHL, my college football power ratings. We'll have NFL power ratings either tonight or tomorrow morning from Danny Borgs. I'll have a UFC preview for you for this weekend. Got a NASCAR preview up for this weekend at Martinsville already. So plenty of stuff going on over at BangTheBook.com. Make sure you check it all out. Finally, as you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. Two guests on the program here today. We start off with professional handicapper Bryan Leonard from WagerTalk.com. Bryan, how's it going today, man?
Everything is going great. Glad to be back on the show.
Glad to have you on as always here, bud. Thank you so much for joining me. And let's start with some Major League Baseball here. Houston, a minus 175 favorite tonight with Justin Verlander on the mound against Steven Strasburg. And I'm not going to call this a must-win for Houston, but after losing game one started by Garrett Cole, it's probably about as close as it gets.
Yeah, you would think so. They've been relying on their two big starters all season long. And the last thing they thought was they would be behind in the series with Garrett Cole on the mound. But, you know, that's what baseball is. You get a great effort from your starter sometimes and you don't score runs. And other times you struggle and you do score some runs, but the other team scores a little bit more. My concern all along with both Verlander and Cole is the amount of home runs they allow. And that just shows you how the other team is approaching their at-bats. They're just getting up there and swinging for the fences every single time. And, you know, when you have a team doing that, sure, you're going to get your strikeouts, and that's what Verlander and Cole are known for. But when they get hit hard if it's in the air. And that's something for example, today, I believe the total in the game was 7. When you get a low total game like that, and you've got a team swinging for the fences, just a couple of times they swing for the fences. If they got somebody on, you know, that's a loser. So that's a concern always when you get those two on the mound. The Houston offense have been so good all the season. It's kind of hasn't shown much in that regard. You haven't heard a lot of people talking about the propensity for home runs out of those two guys. But, you know, when they've gone up against a good starter like they did yesterday, and in reality, neither starter had a good day, but the home plate umpire played towards more runs, and we have that again today. I don't do a lot for the home plate umpires on the season, but once you get down to like one game to handicap, that's something you want to take a look at. So, you know, I'm looking right now. I think there's value on the road dog and the over. I haven't done anything to lock in a play as of yet, but that's what I'm looking at in this game too.
Something I thought was really interesting over at The Athletic, Mark Simon put together a really good piece here. I think it was a couple of days ago, looking at the home plate umpires for all the games here in this series. And Doug Eddings, who is behind the plate tonight, annually one of the biggest strike zones. So we'll see how favorable it is for Strasburg and Verlander. One thing that is kind of interesting here is that, you know, we did see this total come down from 7.5 to 7, presumably because Doug Eddings, one of the best under umpires in baseball. But, you know, hey, in a one-game sample, who knows if it's going to play out in that way. The thing that really worries me for the Nationals here in this game is, you know, they went to Patrick Corbin yesterday to bridge the gap for the 6th inning for them. Tanner Rainey wasn't great. Daniel Hudson wasn't great. Sean Doolittle was very good and only needed 13 pitches to get 4 outs. So that's a big deal for Washington here tonight, where Doolittle should be okay to come back. But it was very clear with Corbin being the first guy out, you expected to pitch in game 3, kind of a side day for him anyway. But it's very clear what Davey Martinez wants to do here, trying to get some of these bullpen innings. And he's done it all along, using his best pitchers as often as he can. If Steven Strasburg is not efficient tonight, and Scherzer was not efficient last night through 112 pitches in 5 innings, that's the obvious worry here for Washington is whenever they have to go to that bullpen, things could get very dicey. So I don't know about a pregame position, but this is something you can carry throughout the series here. If that Washington bullpen is called to action, maybe a good opportunity to try and take Houston with a live betting play.
Yeah, I think that last game showed us exactly what both teams are trying to do. You talked about the starter for Washington throwing a lot of pitches. That's what Houston wants to do. I mean, he was at basically 100 pitches in 5 innings or so. They wanted to get him out as soon as possible, which is smart from Houston's standpoint, as you said. Other than the closer, the middle relief and the later relief has been a weak spot for Washington all year. Corbin coming in and I don't know why more major league teams don't do this. Instead of having him throw a side session during his normal day off, have him come in and pitch an inning. To me, that's a no-brainer. That's something that we're going to see in the future out of Major League Baseball, especially teams that don't have very good bullpens, and there's plenty of them out in Major League Baseball. So I think we'll see a little bit more of that. But Houston is a patient team. They've got guys that'll wait on some pitches, and so they're doing it the way they should be doing it here is trying to take the starter deep into the game. You take a look at Strasburg, his last 7 starts, his shortest tenure was 85 against the Dodgers, but then he went 117 last time out against St. Louis. So he's been pretty pumped up. 4 of his last 7 have gone at least 100 innings. So 100 pitches. So he'll be able to go as long as he can here. But that is a concern. And you mentioned live betting. That's something you want to worry about. And Corbin obviously won't be available tonight. And usually when you got a righty, you try to throw a lefty after that. But Houston has been very good against left-handers this year. It's probably going to be a lot of right-handers in the bullpen going for Washington tonight.
Yeah, and when I broke this series down, I was kind of looking at it look, Max Scherzer on the season, incredible stat here. Struck out 38.6% of the right-handed batters he faced and only walked 2.7% of them. That 35.9 K percentage minus walk percentage was the best in baseball by over 4%. So Scherzer was not a good matchup for this right-handed heavy Houston offense, and they actually did a pretty good job overall. They drew the 3 walks. They ran that pitch count up in 5 innings. Strasburg is still very good against righties, although not as good as Scherzer. So yeah, I think Houston probably does even up the series tonight. Again, as you mentioned, with Corbin unavailable, but laying that minus 175 price is a little bit steep, especially because you've got a guy in Verlander that could give up a solo home run in the 1st or 2nd inning. Then all of a sudden you get Houston closer to a pick'em. I think that's the spot that you probably want to look to go here in this one. But Bryan, what about the rest of the series? I mean, obviously we've got, Washington up 1-0 now. Hopefully people took my advice and took Houston to win the World Series before the series against New York. Play Washington back here. You're free rolling the World Series. But obviously here with the Game 1 victory for the Nationals, this series price moving quite a bit. Houston's still favored, but as opposed to being minus 215, they're now in the minus 120 range. So would you take Houston for the series here, or do you think that beating Cole really gives Washington a springboard to take this down?
Yeah, I'd take Washington here. They've got right now. I just want to touch on something. Verlander, we talked about the home runs. The last 3 outings for Verlander, he's given up 5 home runs. So it's something you always have to keep in mind. Whereas Strasburg, his last 7 outings, he's only given up 5 home runs. So not as prone to the home runs as Verlander. The situation going back to Washington with being in pretty good shape is definitely an advantage. One of the things that a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to is the DH. Right now, Houston's major power source is the rookie, the DH on that team, and now he's going to go on the road into Washington. What are they going to do? He's not been a good defensive player, so I can't see them bringing him in other than maybe a pitch hitting role. So that's 3 at-bats each game. You're going to lose your best pure power hitter on the team, and that's going to be a concern for Houston going on the road. Houston's home record this year has been outstanding. 65-23. On the road, 49-37, which is only slightly better than what Washington has done on the road. So, you came into this saying this had to be a must-win for Houston. the more I look at it, if Houston falls down here, I don't think they're coming back in this series.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I mentioned that about the DH in my series preview with Yordan Alvarez. And that's the thing. I mean, do you try to go for the offense or do you, actively weaken your defense? I think it's a big question that Houston has to answer here for game 3, especially. Then, of course, we'll see where they kind of are and they can maybe reassess at that point in time. But also, too, for Houston here in the playoffs, and this was something that was talked about a lot in the ALCS, both teams really struggled with runners in scoring position in those key plate appearances that oftentimes decide a game. In game 1, Washington went 2 for 9. Houston went 3 for 12. Houston leaves 11 men on base. Washington leaves 4. So, for the Astros here, they've got to start cashing in on some of those opportunities, and we'll see if they're able to do it here tonight against Strasburg. But like you said, I mean, I think that right now, you certainly have to like Washington's chances, especially beating Cole. We've seen Verlander struggle on short rest. We'll see if he makes a short rest start in this series. But now at this point in time, you've probably got to go with Garrett Cole in 1, 4, and 7 if you're Houston. And we all know how that can go with short rest here in these playoff series.
I agree.
All right, one other thing I want to ask you about here with regards to this series is, with the DH coming out of play here in game 3 and then obviously in game 4 as well, and then certainly into game 5 with the 2-3-2 format, what does that do for you from a total standpoint here in this series? I mean, do you think that'll be accurately priced into the line?
It should be. They've known what was going to happen the whole time. Basically, you would have somebody who would have 4 at-bats that's going to get 1. And then you've got, but the thing is with Houston, I don't know. They played 21 interleague games. They were only 11 and 10 in those, which it's maybe a small sample, but it may be a little bit telling. But, how many guys on their team from a pitching standpoint, the starters, have a past where they can get up there and hit? I know Verlander loves to hit, but you have to look at the drop-off between what your regular DH would be and what these guys that rarely hit come up to bat. So you may find, other than when Verlander and Cole pitch, you may find that Houston goes to the bullpen a little bit sooner just so they don't have to have those starting pitchers pitch more, or bat more than one time in that game. So it'll be an interesting chess match. We'll have to see how it works out. But without knowing what the price is at this point, it's hard to tell what kind of advantage you're going to have.
Well, you will see Zach Greinke in game 3. He, of course, was with Arizona. He's hit. So, at least there's that. But, again, obviously not the same thing as Yordan Alvarez or some other position player. Garrett Cole probably in game 4. Again, played for the Pirates, is used to hitting, but another guy that can't really hit. So you also wonder, too, from the Washington side, though, maybe they have to pull starters a little bit earlier because they've got men on base. What does that mean in terms of their bullpen usage? They're going to have to get some outs probably from some guys that they're not real comfortable trying to get outs from. So will be a good chess match. Of course, me being the anti-bunting guy, seeing both teams bunt early in game 1, not real thrilled with that, but a lot of chess being played here over the rest of this series, to be sure. As we transition over to the football side of things here, I want to let you know that this portion of Bang the Book Radio presented by the Trends app, TRNDS, the app available on iOS only. But you can go to the website, Trends Sports, TRNDS-sports.com, to check out everything that they have to offer. And look, this is a great tool. It's a great resource. It simplifies access to powerful data. You can look up what you want. How do teams do coming off of a loss? How do teams do in cold weather? We're certainly going to have a lot of cold weather here the rest of the way in the NFL and college football. How do teams do after a bye? The double bye in college football this year, all the bye weeks going on in the NFL. A lot of good stuff out there for you to check out. Again, using that Trends app where you can identify new betting angles, create your own views on the game, and share those with your friends and your network. So the Trends app is available for free on the App Store for iOS users. However, if you're one of the first 100 users to sign up from this promo at trends-sports.com/bangthebook, again, TRNDS-sports.com/bangthebook, you're one of the first 100, you'll get a free month of the app's premium subscription tier. So you check that out. A lot of great information there, to be sure. Once again, that is the Trends app and the Trends website, TRNDS-sports.com/bangthebook. NDS. All right, Brian, we transition over to the college football side of things here, and we're more than halfway through the regular season now at this point in time, so it feels like we've got a pretty good idea of what we're working with. And then you get Illinois over Wisconsin, you get Vanderbilt over Missouri. A lot of inconsistency here in college football this year.
Definitely. That is the best part about betting college sports, is you can see on a lot of these where you can find teams that ahead of time, you from a standpoint of watching the games and knowing the schedule, which games a team's going to have a letdown in and which games the team may be looking past somebody. Most of the time when you see these kind of things happen, it's pretty much, not expected, but it's in the back of your head that it could happen. But there's other times where, for example, when Toledo played Bowling Green the other day, I liked Bowling Green in that game, but I had no idea the fall off that Toledo was going to have the next 2 weeks. They're looking at game scores coming into it. They averaged about an 86 game score going into the Bowling Green, and then drops to 61, and then Ball State 57. So obviously the quarterback change has made some difference, but yeah, it's certain times where you just see a drop off like that. It's just amazing. But teams play up and down, all season long. And that's something that certain teams can get away with. You have enough talent, enough guys coming off the bench that will love a chance to play and get a chance to get in that game, where you have other times where you just don't have guys to replace the guys that just aren't playing well. So it's coaches' decisions, and their job is to get these teams up every week. And you can't. Anybody who's played organized sports in their life, sure, you've got your rivalries and you've got your guys that you want to go up against, but then there's other times where you just go through the motions, and hey, it happens. It happens to everybody in everyday life. It happens to football players and sport players overall. So what our job is to try to predict when something like that can happen, and sometimes we do pretty well on that. Other times it just catches us completely out of the blue.
Well, and you talk about Toledo, and that's the first game we're going to touch on here, game 119-120, Eastern Michigan and Toledo. And, look, I'm going to go ahead and say it here. I've got an overlay on Toledo. I've got this game over a touchdown here, even though Eastern Michigan looked very good last week, had the quarterback change. The new quarterback, Preston Hutchinson, looked really, really good. But with Toledo here, and this has kind of been a theme over the MAC throughout the season, I have no idea what the hell I'm going to get.
Yeah, I can understand that. All I knew coming into the season from my work that the MAC wasn't going to be very good. Normally you find one or two teams, maybe three out of the MAC that are decent. But the back end of the MAC is horrendous. We've seen that already with Akron and some of the other teams back there. Bowling Green came out, after the bye. They had they've had a new coaching staff came in. They had the bye week. They had their best week of practice. And then, like I said, when they played Toledo, they dominated that game. There was no doubt about it. And I thought my mistake was in interpreting that was that with the extra week off of the new coaching staff, that Bowling Green would be a play on. My mistake after looking at last week's numbers, maybe Toledo was the play against. And you look at a team in Toledo, they play BYU at home, they get that victory. That's a hard-fought victory. BYU's got older players, and that was a quality victory. Then they play Western Michigan, and they get that victory. Western Michigan probably, I think most of us can agree, is probably the best team in the MAC. But then they play Bowling Green and Ball State and don't even show up. Now they're playing a team maybe on the same level as Bowling Green and Eastern Michigan. They've got Kent State on deck, Northern Illinois in a down season, Buffalo and Central Michigan. From a talent standpoint, Toledo should sweep the board the rest of the way. And as you mentioned, my numbers on this game is Toledo also. I got Toledo 6. So my numbers say Toledo, but what has happened to this team? I know I mentioned the quarterback before, but the MAC doesn't bring in elite quarterbacks. I mean, if you're a good quarterback, you're probably third string in an SEC or a Big Ten school or Big 12 even, before you get a chance to play at the MAC. So the MAC's not known, other than the gentleman that plays for the Pittsburgh Pirates, or excuse me, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The MAC hasn't had very many great quarterbacks. Once they do get drafted, they kind of fade out when they get to the NFL. And we've seen that a few guys out there. But the numbers say Toledo, but this has been one of those teams that you look at Toledo on the season, they've only outgained one FBS team, and that was Western Michigan. Even in victories over Colorado State, they lost that game by 147. They lose Kentucky 75 in a game that they lost by 14. I don't think I could trust Toledo here. The numbers say Toledo, but I can find better games to put my money on for more trustworthy teams.
Well, and maybe this is one of those cases where perhaps we should have seen this coming with Toledo. You look at the first year with Jason Candle, who took over for Matt Campbell. They had 7.2 yards per play. Second year under Jason Candle, 6.9 yards per play. Third year under Candle, 6.2 yards per play. Defensively, they were about the same, but they started giving up more points last year. And, maybe this is one of those things that we should have seen coming, simply from the fact that, Campbell, obviously we see what he's doing at Iowa State. Great recruiter, terrific maximizer of talent. Jason Candle just had the talent that Campbell recruited. Now Candle's trying to replace it with his guys, and it's not working as well. And I get it. They've had the quarterback injury. We'll see if Guagdani plays this week. If he doesn't, I don't think you could take Toledo at all. If he does, he's much better than the other options that we've seen here so far. But that's the thing. I think that maybe we need to start taking a closer look at these types of scenarios in the group of five, where maybe they elevate a coordinator who had some success under the previous head coach, but the further you get from that previous head coach, the worse that team gets. The ironic thing is Chris Creighton's done a good job at Eastern Michigan. They're kind of having a little bit of a down year relative to where they've been the last couple of seasons, but yet they're still very competitive. Toledo having problems being competitive. I think I'd have to go against my numbers here and take Eastern Michigan, but I wouldn't be excited to take either side in this one.
Yeah, I'm just looking over some of the rushing defense numbers out of Toledo. Against Colorado State, Bowling Green, and Ball State, three teams who will not be going bowling this year. They allowed 8 yards per carry against Colorado State, 5.9 against Bowling Green. Last week, 7.5 against Ball State. This is a team that is just getting crushed on the ground. And, they're going up against the Eastern Michigan team who only averages 3.3 yards per carry. So you figure that they should keep Eastern Michigan down a little bit. But based on what they've done in the past against these bad teams, they haven't shown it to me.
All right, so we jumped down a few spots here, and I think this game's really interesting. I think these are tough handicaps. Game 185, 186, Tulane and Navy. Tulane in a big spot last week, getting blown away by Memphis. Huge win for the Tigers in that one. Can Tulane bounce back here and defend that Navy triple option? I guess we'll have to wait and see, but this line has come down from 4 to 3 with Navy a home favorite. Total kind of hovering in the 52-53 range.
What game number did you say this was? I'm sorry.
It's game 185, 186.
My number, I've got Navy 1.5 here. That's just a raw number. That's what my starting point number is here. Tulane last week against Memphis. I was out on an island. I liked Memphis last week, and as far as I know, I was the only one that I spoke to anybody. They were either off the game or on the other side, and we got the win. The Tulane offense has been so dominant on the ground. They only gained 4.3 yards a carry last week against Memphis. They've averaged 6 yards a carry on the season. You got a Navy team here who's been very good against the run, 3.0 yards allowed on the season. So you've got a strength of Navy stopping the run going against this Tulane team who lives by the run. That is going to be your telling point on who wins this game. Tulane's one of those teams that a lot of people have been on this year, and they look good. But go back and look at the teams that they have played. Played FIU in the opener, the game against Auburn. Then they play, Houston, Army, Connecticut, Memphis. Houston, Army, and Connecticut have all been disappointments, although Connecticut is actually, who would have seen this, a double-digit favorite on the road this week. But not very good teams. Navy did play that same Memphis team that Tulsa just played. They lose by 10 in that game. They actually outgained Memphis by 72 in that contest, so that might be something to compare here. But I don't like to do that kind of comparing, especially at different times of the season. But Navy's only loss has been that Memphis game. They've been able to beat an Air Force team who's very good. They surprised me. I bet Air Force season wins under. Didn't expect this out of them, and they've been pretty good all season long. But number says 1.5 with Navy. Probably nothing to get me too excited about this game. But Navy's been, other than the opening game, the non-conference FCS school game against Holy Cross, where they went 45-7, but their game score was their lowest of the season. Since then, they've been pretty consistent. Whereas Tulane has had a couple, the Houston game, they win that game by 7, but didn't really play a good game. And then last week against Memphis, they were never in that. So consistency is more on the Navy side, and usually you will get more consistent output out of the military schools, but probably not enough here for me to get on one side or the other. But it is going to be, like I said, it'll come down to how Navy stops this Tulane running game.
Well, when you look at that Houston game, that was the last one that De'Ara King played against Tulane. Houston was up 28-14 in that game, and they actually up 28-7 in that game. But Tulane came back. Houston kicked that field goal to tie the game. Then Tulane went 71 yards in 2 plays. It was one of the strangest, most chaotic endings we've seen in quite some time in a Tulane game. So not a great performance, as you mentioned. Army's down quite a bit from where a lot of us thought they would be. UConn getting better, but against Tulane still outclassed a little bit there. Navy in that game against Memphis did outgain them. Navy also had the football for the vast majority of that game, which is what they like to do. My line on this game is Navy -1, so I think there's some line value on Tulane. It's kind of going away now that we're down to 3. I wound up not playing it, though, because I think maybe Navy is a little bit better than I thought, a little bit better than a lot of people thought. So good game, probably not one that you want to bet on. Maybe you want to bet on this game, though. Game 207, 208, almost all the way down the board here. Again, 207, 208. Notre Dame and Michigan, flipped favorite scenario here. Michigan was a 2.5-point favorite early in the week. Now Notre Dame, a 1-point favorite heading to the Big House.
I'm surprised by this line move. I like Michigan in this contest. You go through the Michigan schedule. Sure, they had their struggles early on with Middle Tennessee, Army, and Wisconsin. Everybody's given up on them at that point. But take a look at these game scores since then. 106, 101, 105, 112. And you look at Notre Dame's last 4 game scores, 107, 99, 106, 100. Michigan's played better ball over the last month, and nobody's paid any attention to it. You got Michigan playing at home. That's definitely an advantage there. I know we've got the Irish off of a bye last week, and I always have to take that into account. But I haven't given this out to my clients yet, but I was waiting to look at the peak for the point spread. But I will be on Michigan. This will be on my card this week. This is one of my better plays. I just think we've got a team that everybody's given up on earlier in the season, and now we can go in and take advantage of it. You look at the teams that Notre Dame has played. They opened the season against Louisville, the first game with a new coach, a lot of new players. They win that game by 18. Decent game. I like the way Louisville has played as the season's gone on, but still, that was that first game of the season with a totally new coaching staff. New Mexico's not very good. Georgia, that game that they lose at Georgia by 6. Georgia hasn't looked nearly as good the last couple of weeks, so you got to downgrade that a little bit. They get that victory over Virginia, 35-20, but Virginia's been one of those teams that's been up and down. Then they get Bowling Green and USC. The USC game, they survived that game 30-27. Very tightly played game, no turnover advantage either way. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what they've done. But, Michigan played Iowa, and I thought they were outplayed by Iowa in that game. They still get that victory. But then Illinois, big lead, they let that come back. And then Penn State last week, I had them outplaying Penn State. They outgained Penn State by 134 yards. They lost a turnover battle. People right now are really buying in on Penn State, but in reality, I thought Michigan played them tooth and nail last week and probably should have got the victory. Playing at home right now, Michigan is the side I'm going to be on.
Yeah, I got Michigan -2 in this one. So I agree with you that I'm not quite sure I understand the line move. And this isn't related to this morning's news. Some news came out that maybe Jim Harbaugh planning, quote, an exit strategy from Ann Arbor. He came out, made a very forceful statement, said that's not the case at all. Used, whatever qualifies as colorful language for a guy that wears khakis all the time. But, I thought that it was an interesting line move. It happened earlier on in the week. I'm not sure I get it either. So I don't know if I'll take Michigan here in this one, but I agree with your thoughts and I agree with your sentiments on this marquee matchup here. Late on the board again, late kickoff at the Big House. You figure that's worth probably 3.5, 4 points in and of itself. So, I think this line probably has swung a little bit too far in Notre Dame's direction. We'll see if it winds up coming back a little bit here as we get closer to kickoff. Do want to spend a couple of minutes on the NFL here with you, Brian, as we talk about the game here between, 255, 256, the Chargers and the Bears. And we talk about inconsistency in college football, and that's an epidemic in the NFL this year here too. Bears a 4-point favorite against the Chargers at home.
Yeah, if you were to pick any game that I didn't have an opinion on, this was probably it because I want nothing to do with either of these teams. I didn't have the Bears last week, but for the Bears to have the situation they were in and still get outplayed by New Orleans, that New Orleans defense, coming into the season, we thought it was a weakness, but the last few weeks, ever since they put, you see this a lot. We talk about this a lot, the injured player theory, where teams find ways to win and try to find different ways in which to win when you have a key player go out. And obviously Drew Brees, once he went out, people said, oh my God, what are they going to do now? Bridgewater never throws the ball downfield. They're just going to be right on them. Not going to let them run the football. They'll be playing short. The guy's been a winner, man. It's funny because a lot of people look at his stats and, but he's been a winner. He has done what he's had to do to get victories for his team. And a lot of that is the coaching. And New Orleans has got one of the best coaches in the NFL. And, the Bears should have been able to take advantage of that last week, and they did not. They lose back-to-back weeks to Oakland and New Orleans, two teams that you would think they would have an advantage on. They got that victory over Minnesota 16-6, and they thought, oh, wow, we're the team to beat now. And then all of a sudden they come up with two poor performances. The Chargers, we saw it once again last week. The quarterback, Rivers, will not even attempt a quarterback sneak. It's the most successful play in NFL football. If you want to gain 1 yard, he's a big guy. He could go in there. He refuses to put his body on the line. I guess he figures, if he does that, he won't be able to have 6 or 7 more kids by the time he ends up unable to do that. But Jesus, come on now. You've got the game on the line. We've seen this so often, and he refuses to do it. I don't know if the coaching staff is the one that doesn't want him to get hurt, but how many times, I hate to say this after the Kansas City situation, but really, how many times does a quarterback get hurt by doing the quarterback sneak? Not very often. That tells me that if I'm a teammate there and your quarterback is not willing to put his body on the line to get you the victory, I don't know if I'm completely buying into the Chargers at this point.
I kind of reserve Thursday for my days to read about what's going on in the NFL Thursday morning, because by then a lot of my content's written at BangTheBook.com. But I'm wondering, did the Chargers go all the way back home, or did they stay after playing in Nashville last week?
I don't know. This is not one of the games I was interested in, so it's low. I'm low on my priorities.
All right, fair enough. That's something I'm just kind of wondering here, because we have seen that team building type of concept work a couple of different times. Work with the Saints on the West Coast, work with the Giants, or not the Giants, the 49ers when they stayed in Youngstown and then completely blew the doors off of Cincinnati in week 2. So we have seen those things kind of play out a little bit. So I'm kind of curious to read up on that, see if I can get an answer on that one. Do you have a stronger opinion on Jets and Jaguars, or should we bounce to a different NFL game?
Not much on that one either. If you could find another one, but I do want to point out that Hawaii in the past, when they play back-to-back games on the mainland, they have done that, and it definitely makes a difference in their regard. So you may be onto something. That may be something we can get a little bit of an edge on in the future.
All right, so whether it's a game that you've played or not, or, I'd hate to pull back the curtain on a premium play, but what NFL game, if there's one you could pick here, do you have a strong opinion on?
Actually, I haven't played anything in the NFL, so if you can, if you've got one that you're interested, I mean, we can go back over the one that you just spoke about, but whatever you decide.
How about Panthers and 49ers with San Francisco 5.5-point favorite at home? Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, let's take a look at that one.
All right, so what are you thinking?
Well, the 49ers are one of those teams right now. Obviously, you're undefeated, and anytime you're undefeated, you've got a lot of guys that want to bet on you, and I guess I can't blame them. I mean, they've already shown that they've been much better than what we expected. But this Carolina team is also a team that I think is a little bit under the radar. They have won 4 in a row, but they really haven't played elite teams: Arizona, Houston, Jacksonville, Tampa Bay. But you do what you can when you play those teams. They lost to the Rams by 3 at home in the opener, then they lose to Tampa. And everybody was thinking, well, here we go again for the Carolina Panthers, a team that seems to underperform a lot. But, keep in mind, this is their 4th road game in 5 weeks for the Panthers. And if memory's correct, they were in London one of those games, I believe. So they've done a lot of traveling here. You got San Francisco coming off of Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, the Rams, and Washington. So they also have played a very easy schedule, with the Rams probably being the best team that they've played. And we all know the Rams have their own problems going on. But the 49ers right now are a team that is a peak situation where, you've got the undefeated team. They beat the Rams, which is a popular team. And obviously they killed the Browns on national TV. That doesn't hurt at all to bring up your popularity there. So I think the 49ers may be peaking a little bit from a point spread situation. We're looking at Carolina. I prefer the Carolina side. I thought Carolina was a team I'd look to bet on. But once again, you got the 4th road game in 5 games. That's not a positive there. So leaning with Carolina, but to be honest with you, at this point, I haven't seen anything in the NFL that I wanted to jump on early. These are something that once I get my college football done, I take a closer look at the NFL because the lines don't move as much. And but at this point, it's a blank slate for me right now in the NFL.
Bryan Leonard, professional handicapper over at wagertalk.com. What's going on over there right now, man?
Wednesday's videos day. Doing a lot of videos this week. I think we might have some guys coming from out of town that may be in for videos. I'm not sure, but it's always nice to see some guys that are living in foreign countries, and I can get a little bit of their kind of views on the United States and what's going on right now here. But and then I've got the Sports Grid live betting show tonight from 5 to 7 on the internet at sportsgrid.com, and it'll be on Zumo TV. And we talk in-game sports betting, which to me is the future of sports betting. You're going against a few people in the in-game market as opposed to millions of people in the pregame market. And now the basketball season started, and this actually is the first full slate of NBA basketball. I think we may be able to come up with some live betting opportunities tonight. So if you're a guy who wants to learn about live betting or enjoys live betting, this may be a real nice night to do it. And that's a Sports Grid on the internet.
Bryan Leonard, again, available over at wagertalk.com. Check out that Sports Grid show tonight, and also make sure you follow him on Twitter at BLeonardSports. Bryan, appreciate the time as always, man. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll talk to you again next week.
I appreciate it. I just want to let you know that now the basketball season has come. I'll be once again releasing a lot of second half plays in basketball action. You can't put that up for clients because there's just not enough time for everybody to get it. So I try to tweet it out. Had success in the past. And if you follow us at B Leonard Sports, you'll be able to get those plays on a daily basis.
Oh, definitely highly recommend that. Bryan, always a pleasure, bud. Thank you so much. And talk to you next Wednesday.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone.